Hello my dear sewing friends, it's Alisa here and welcome back to the handmade gift series of this year. Now this is episode number 5, so if you haven't seen episode 1, 2, 3 or 4, I highly recommend that you go and check them out, get those ideas, spark that creativity, get your sojo going for this holiday season, and as always I will leave the links for all of those episodes in the description of this video. Now today's idea is very easy, very straightforward, but nonetheless very versatile. And I think that you're going to love it. And of course, we're going to be making a hooded towel or a hooded blanket. It all depends on what materials you choose to make it from. And as you can see here, I prepared some for our inspiration. And I love that you can use this idea for any age. You can make it for kids, you can make it for adults, you can even make an extra small version for dolls if your kids are of that age. So as you can see, you can truly customize it to fit whatever season of life is right now for you. Alright, so first things first, there's actually quite a few different hooded blankets and hooded towels on the market in the shops that you can actually buy ready to wear, so that could serve like a really good chunk of inspiration. And I also think there are some freestyle patterns as well that you can use in order to create your own. It just so happens that I just don't love any of them. I did make a hooded towel way back when, probably about 5 years ago or so, when my little one was little, and it worked okay, but it wasn't the best that it could be. And as you know, I only want to suggest to you what I feel confident in and what I truly love. So that's the mission for today, to make a hooded towel or a hooded blanket that you will be absolutely delighted to make as a gift, and the person who is going to be using it will feel the same way. So I'm going to start with a regular hood, and then I'm going to modify that, and once I'm done and finalized with my design, I will give you all of the measurements, so that way you don't have to draft anything from scratch. From there you can make it smaller or bigger, and that's it. You will be done and dusted. And I usually have a couple of guide points. Here I have 2. Number 1, usually when you see these hooded blankets or hooded towels, it's a square or a rectangle with a hood attached to one of the sides. And when you go and use it as a regular blanket or as a regular towel, that hood sort of like flops around on the side. It's not a big deal, obviously, but I don't know, to me it just kind of, I don't know, I would like for it to be a little bit more streamlined. And when you're using it as a regular blanket or a towel, I still would like for it to retain shape of a rectangle or a square. So I would like that hood to be incorporated somehow instead of being, you know, flopping on the side. And number 2, it has to have as little seams as possible. And one of the reasons for it is because when you're making a hooded towel for a young child or perhaps a travel blanket, you want it to be comfortable. And when you're adding hood on top or to one side of the rectangles, it has a seam right over here, and sometimes it can create bulk depending on what fabric and material you're using for it, what technique of attaching that hood you're using. So I want it to be as comfortable and have as little seams as possible. So those are 2 things that I keep in mind when I'm working on this. Adjusted a couple of things, I do have a working prototype, and I think it's going to turn out really well. So right now, let me show you what measurements you will need, and then we'll make the real thing together. First, let's start with a rectangle which measures 6 inches by 9 inches. Then in the upper left corner, we're going to measure 2 inches down on both sides. So on this side and on this side as well. Now let's visually divide this 90-degree angle in half. So at a 45-degree angle, let's go ahead and do a straight line and just measure from here to here 3 inches and put a little dot. Now this little dot isn't on the same level as these little marks that we made first, so let's go ahead and connect them with a slightly curved line. Next, I'm going to measure about 5.5 inches starting at this mark. So from here all the way to here, 5.5 inches, and make a mark. And then in the bottom right corner, let's go ahead and measure 2 inches up. And again, make a little mark. Now here we want to start at the 90 degrees, so let's go ahead and take a small little straight line down. And from here we want to curve it in real nice, connecting the 2 points together, like so. At this point it's basically done. Now we just have to mark our seam allowances. We will do seam allowances over here on the top and right over here. This part is going to be cut on the fold. This is the top and this is the bottom. Now my husband and my little one absolutely love going to the pool together, so I'm creating a gift for that occasion, and this is going to be a hooded towel. So this particular fabric, by the way, I got it from Joann's, and nowadays toweling is really readily available, so you can get it pretty much anywhere in a variety of different colors and sometimes even with patterns. So I'm sure you will have fun time choosing some beautiful fabrics. So this one is about 46 inches wide. So I figured if I do a square, so 46 inches on all sides, then that will create a good enough size towel for about a 5-year-old. So you can use the same measurements for kids that are a little bit younger, kids that are a little bit older, or you can use your own measurements depending on what fabric you're working with, how wide is it, what is the print, is it directional, non-directional, and taking into account all of those things. So first I'm going to cut a square. I'm also going to tidy up these little salvage ends and cut them off. Alright, we have a square. Now on to the next step. So here I have my square, one side and then the other side. Then just pick a corner that you want to work with, and we want to fold that corner in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the bottom corner and I'm going to bring it over to this corner like so. And this is what we're going to have on this side. You can put a couple of clips in it so nothing moves, and now let's go ahead and rotate that this way. Now let's go ahead and grab our pattern piece, and to make it really easy, the key point here is this side, the left side that is going to be cut on the fold. So we have top, bottom, and the left side on the fold. So currently we have one side that's on the fold and it's this one on the diagonal. So now we want to place our pattern piece like so, so that the fold part is on the fold, and we want to make sure that this point, this tip of the pattern piece touches this line just like so. We will need to cut away this little part of the front of the hooded towel, but it's just a tiny bit, and I'm going to show you how to efficiently use that up. Now that I have pinned it, let's go ahead and cut it, and remember that this time all of my seam allowances are marked already, so I don't have to add anything extra as I'm cutting this. Now let's go ahead and sort this side out. I'm going to be using green water-soluble marker so that way you can see a little bit better, but in your case, please use a tool that you feel confident in and is not going to leave any marks. So what we want from this point right over here, so from the top of the seam allowance, we want to take a line, a straight line that is going to be parallel to the already cut edge. So just a straight line like so. In my cases, this is just about 1.5 inches wide, and we're going to cut both layers of the fabric, starting with the line going all the way, and in this corner. Now let's go ahead and put this all together, and first I'm going to sew this top seam, and my fabric is the same on both sides, so for me it doesn't really matter, but if your fabric has a very distinguishable wrong and right side, go ahead and place your pattern pieces right sides together, and let's sew this top seam. Now, as you can see here, I'm using a serger, but you can use a sewing machine without a problem. It all depends on what kind of fabric you're using. In my case, toweling loves to unravel, so serger is perfect for that. But to substitute the serger stitch, you can use a tightly spaced zigzag stitch or an overcast stitch on your sewing machine. While we're at it, let's go ahead and grab some of these offcuts. We only need the tiniest little piece, so grab the one that's the thickest, so for example this one, and let's measure about 7 inches. So I want to cut right over here till about here, and now we're going to place it like so, right sides together, and we're going to sew it on the edges. Once done, let's go ahead and turn it right side out. Now this is the top seam that we just finished. Now we want to grab this little corner on both sides like so, and we want to pull it apart and make sure that the seam now is flat and straight, and then this top seam is right here in the middle. Now we want to grab our little hook and we want to place it inside, so on one side and on the other side like so. Now it's time to sew again, and you can of course just go ahead and sew across, but I find that if you actually curve the seam a little bit, so start at the sides and curve it in like so, it's going to give you a much neater result and also a super smooth top of the hood. I'm going to do one extra step before we move on to sewing the seam, and I'm going to baste it. Just because this fabric is really thick, and although there aren't a lot of layers, the layers themselves are really thick. And I'm actually using a water-soluble thread. I know that last year when I showed it, so many people made fun of me for it, but this thread is great when you need to baste something and then you don't really want to worry about removing those basting stitches. Like for example, when I need a really accurate and precise zipper basting, oh, this works really great. And in this case, of course, it's a towel, so these stitches are going to be gone the first time that this comes in contact with water. So this is actually really great. I love these little inventions. Of course, you will need to tuck away all of the loose threads, but once you turn it to the right side, ta-da! This is what we have, and I'm going to give it a really good press once we're all done. But now let's go ahead and move on to the hemming, and that is pretty much the last and final step. Here I'm going to start in one of the bottom corners, and we're simply going to fold it in once, as thin as you can, depending on how thick is your fabric. So about 1/4 inch, 3/8 of an inch, and then one more time, so creating a narrow double fold hem, and that's it. We're going to stitch right over here with a straight stitch all the way around. Now remember how in episode number 2 of this exact gift series I showed you how to do the same hem on the towel. So this is exactly the same thing, just a different project. After that, I gave it a really quick press, and that's it. It's basically ready to go. Just go ahead and tidy up any loose threads, secure all of the seams. I do have one last thing to do because, as you know, I absolutely love adding little labels to my handmade items, especially with a beautiful sentiment or when it says that it's handmade or the year when this particular garment was made, so that way we can remember. So this one says, "From my heart to yours." Oftentimes I do get asked, where do I get my labels? There is one company that I do trust. It is an affiliate link, but I do trust them, and I have ordered labels from them for a while now. So I will leave the link for you guys if you want to check them out in the description. So the label is gonna go on one of the corners, and then we'll be ready to test it out. All right, the label is on, and you know what? While I was adding it on, I didn't really think about how am I going to put this towel on my daughter without letting her in on the secret of this gift. So maybe I could ask her to close her eyes, and then I could put it on, and then I'm also going to put it on myself, so that way you can see if these measurements are going to be good for adult or not. This little dart that we did right on the top of the hood, it's actually pretty stable. Look at me, it doesn't fall off, so it's really nice that it's not sliding. You know, for an adult, for a little throw blanket or a little travel blanket, this could actually be a really good size. Of course, if you want something bigger, you will need to make it bigger, but even the hood size feels really good. So maybe leave it as is or make it a little bit bigger. Of course, also depends on how much hair you have. And then of course, if you just want to cover yourself, it's easy because there's not much over here in the area of the hood. And if you also want to wipe yourself with it, this is also great, and it folds flat. Now I know it might not matter much to some, but we do live in a small space, so it does matter when you can fold everything nice and neat and tuck it away without any trouble, and then the space is still neat and organized. So there you have it. Now of course, is it a convenience thing? It is, absolutely. Could you just use a regular blanket and a regular towel? Absolutely, yes, of course. But you know what I find? I find that whenever you have small children and you have those large towels, half of the time children have really hard time carrying those towels around them, so they end up on the floor dragging behind them. And to me, that's just like, ugh. I'm not a germaphobe on the large scale, but I do feel a little like inside my soul. So this could actually be a really great solution where you just pop it on their heads, then they can do this, and they're all tucked away nice and warm. Now if you have these little offcuts, I want to show you a project that you can use them up and create a useful little thing for your bathroom. So definitely click right over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you very soon in another video. Bye!